following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back.
Welcome to Speak Up. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I am starting off my show with Kimberly Morin, the activist from New Hampshire. Yes. You are. Welcome back to the show, Kimberly.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And I see you brought your laptop today.
I did because there's too much to print.
Okay. So basically, I have Kim on the show to talk about, what's going on up at the Capitol. What are some of the bills that people should be aware of that, they're too busy working? What's going on?
Well, right now, they're sort of tying things up, wrapping things up for the year. Thank you. And they are, the Senate passed over bills that they had passed from the Senate.
Right.
Sorry, that didn't make much sense. And then the House sent bills to the Senate, so they're going back and forth, voting on those bills or making amendments to those bills. So it's pretty much back and forth right now with different bills that were already passed. But what I wanted to do today was bring awareness to people in Nashua, voters, residents, on what Nashua reps are voting on and how they voted. Because I think a lot of times people are so busy. They have families, they have jobs, they have homes to take care of, maybe they have elderly parents to take care of. They don't have the time to torture themselves like I do and listen to the Senate in session or the Florida House in session.
Right. Things you should know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think it's really important that people understand what their representatives voted for because they're not going to get the truth. My motto is never believe a politician. I don't care who they are, what party, verify for yourself.
Right.
Because they're not necessarily going to tell you the whole truth about what it is they voted for.
Okay.
They might spin it a little bit or circumvent the actual facts, but I think it's important that people know
what the bottom line is.
Essentially what the bottom line is.
Right.
What if they increase taxes, did they take more freedoms away? Did they vote for bigger government? I mean, depending on what things you are for, which considering we live free or die in New Hampshire, I make the assumption that the majority are for smaller government, lower taxes, less spending, because that's the kind of state we've traditionally been.
Right.
And honestly should remain to be, because we see how other states are failing or have huge liabilities coming up that the taxpayers are on the hook for.
Speaking of which, I just read something from Charlie Arlinghouse that we might be on the hook for $300 million, and that the hospitals have been paid some type of a tax, or they had to pay a particular tax.
The medical enhancement tax, yes.
Medical enhancement tax.
It was referred to previously by someone as Metascam.
Right.
It was basically just moving money around, federal funds. It had to do with Medicaid.
Right.
And this is what happens when we take federal government dollars and then they don't come through with the full amount that they're supposed to.
Right.
So this was sort of a scheme to switch dollars over so that the hospitals didn't suffer so much.
And they kept
losses.
kicking the can down the road, Now all of a sudden, somebody's on the hook and they're going to have to pay for it. Is it going to be the taxpayers?
Well, it depends on who's in charge.
Right.
You will either have people who can figure out how to cut things that are unnecessary or wasteful in the budget, or shift things around, or work with the hospitals to figure something else out.
I think, is it Representative Hess that's working on a bill right now?
There's a few people that are working on something, some kind of resolution for it.
Right. But what people need to be aware of, there's a maybe $300 to $400 million liability that we might be on the hook for, and that's just one thing.
Yeah,
So
that's just one thing.
What's happening? Apparently the illegals that didn't that bill
The
for
in-state
illegal-
tuition for illegal aliens did not pass. It passed the House, but it was shut down in the Senate.
How did the Nashua reps vote on that?
I would have to look through all of these lists, but definitely many of them voted for it.
Okay.
What I have here is I have a list.
Okay.
It's actually
Let's go down your list.
24 pages long.
All right.
I
Well, we
tried
don't
to
have
put
that
it
kind of
into
time.
Word, and it was 70 pages,
Wow.
so I could edit it.
Okay.
Of bad votes. I didn't even count all the votes. I didn't even count all the bad votes. I counted, some bad votes that were in here.
What's the most pressing things that's sticking out in your mind on some of these bills?
People consistently voted to expand Obamacare in New Hampshire. And you think the medical enhancement tax, Metascam, is a problem? Obama's Medicaid expansion is going to be a bigger problem.
Why?
Because, once again, the federal government is not going to come through with the funds, just like they didn't with Medicaid when we took it before, which is why we have this problem. And taxpayers will be on the hook for it.
And are only a few hospitals going to be part of the program?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure how that's going to work. What's happening at first is because the majority of people already have private insurance, we're going to pay for their co-pays and premiums and everything. So, because those people already have insurance. So, they'll be able to use the same hospitals they use now.
I just, think of the ACA and I look at the VA and I'm wondering, is that what we have to look forward to? The government seems to have a really good way of hiding things and not being accountable. And if somebody screws up, well, then they can plead the fifth and get a nice pension. And nothing seems to change. They're very good at stalling. They're very good at hiding the truth. They're very good at making you go from one agency to another agency to another agency, which kills the clock. Yep. And by killing the clock, then you get worn down. They beat you down through attrition. That's what they do in the state. All right, so what's the next bill?
So that was Representative Boras in Hillsborough District, Nashua District 33. I have all the districts and everything all listed out. Some other bills, bills were to allow diverting money from the highway fund. That's a huge one because Governor Hassan signed the gas tax into law, which raised the gas tax by 22%.
Okay.
And even that is not dedicated to highway funds only. So here we have the Department of Transportation that rakes in a couple $100 million a year. No one knows exactly what they do with the money, but we do know that at least $80 million is diverted from highway funds to the general fund.
It turns into a slush fund for the politicians. Instead of, they raise the rates and either the courts take the money or the state police
takes it.
Or somebody else. Instead of it actually, we need the state police, obviously, but you also need the infrastructure to be taken care of, and it turns into a slush fund.
Yep.
And there seems to be no accountability. Again, I was told that there was going to be a 4-cent tax increase. You're saying it was 22%?
It's 22% overall. It is 4.2 cents, but the percentage is 22%.
And
that's
then
a pretty big increase.
the feds are gonna be
you can
doing
look
the
at the 4 cents and say, oh, that's not so much. I can handle that. But it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect across the board. It's going to increase prices. We're already paying astronomical amounts for gas, and we've been paying that since 2009.
But if it's not going to the roads, then why are we doing it?
Exactly.
All right. So what's the next tax? It's just a whatever.
Well, and that's the problem. They signed this in, and Republicans in the House did try to make it so that this gas tax was specifically for infrastructure only goes to the roads.
Right.
And Democrats voted against that. So that was an amendment that was put in. Another, I'll go down to another one. Let's see, who can I look at now? Oh, Pamela Brown. She's in Nashua District 31. She, again, voted for Obamacare. She voted in favor of higher electricity costs. That was another bill that would increase our electricity costs. She voted to increase the cigarette taxes. Now, I know most people don't care about that because the majority of people probably don't smoke, but that hurts poor people the most because typically poor people are the ones who smoke. So it's a regressive tax. And once again, it doesn't go to quit smoking programs, which is what it was originally intended. It goes to all different things. So it's another piggy bank slush fund for them to use. She also voted to increase the fishing license fees. I mean, really? These are just ridiculous things that these people are voting for, and most of them voted to increase the minimum wage as well.
Did that pass the Senate?
No, it did not.
Okay.
No, it did not. The Senate was smart enough to realize that it would actually hurt New Hampshire as opposed to helping.
And I keep thinking of the Medicaid expansion, and eventually, you know, the taxpayers are going to have to pay for that. And the people that want to do business in New Hampshire are going to realize that there's this overwhelming burden. Do they want to absorb all these taxes? Do they want to pay higher electricity? Chances are they're not going to want to. They're going to be overregulated. They're not going to come here. You know where they're going to go? Texas. They're going to go to Texas, and in the meantime, grandma is going to end up paying a higher property tax. And then if they introduce an income tax to pay for the Medicaid expansion, well, grandma's still going to have to pay for that because she's going to have to pay on her interest on her retirement or whatever. All these things add up, and it all sounds good. It all sounds like you're trying to help people, but in the reality, you're taking out of one person's pocket and putting it in another, and you don't realize all the pockets you're taking out of.
Right.
You're really hurting the economy, you're hurting the state, you're hurting liberty. What's our next bill?
Well, on that point, not only are they increasing taxes and fees and everything, but they also are increasing regulations on how and who a business can hire and fire, different things like that, that says, don't come here. If you're a business, don't even waste your time because it's too much aggravation to hire employees. The legislators in New Hampshire think they know better than you how to run your business. So if I was a business, I certainly wouldn't move here. I mean, you have all these big gun manufacturing companies that are leaving states like California and Connecticut and other huge gun control states that are moving to other states
that are free,
that could be moving here,
right?
But they're not. And part of the reasons is we aren't right to work. Part of the reason is we have too many regulations, and we don't have a good makeup.
We have as many regulations as California. Someone had pointed out. It's amazing that it takes a certain amount of hours to become a hairdresser in New Hampshire, and less training to become a pilot.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And they did that in the name of protecting the industry. But have you ever had a bad haircut, or a bad perm, or bad?
Years ago.
Okay.
Not lately.
Well, the license doesn't guarantee anything.
No, it doesn't.
What does the free market does? If you get a bad hairdo, you're going to go to the next person.
So these people will over-regulate licensing for hair salons, but not for abortion clinics. You gotta love that one. Women die in abortion clinics, but they don't want, these same Democrats will not mandate increased regulations that are equal to medical
Right, there were some places
clinics.
Actually in Texas that were being busted because the clinics were unhealthy to be at. You know what I just saw recently, and I know this is on the side, but there were some congressional hearings. You can find it on YouTube. I've actually put it on one of my pages, but where the ACA, if you sign up for the ACA, do you know that you potentially are going to void all HIPAA regulations? In other words, you sign up, there's a little clause that says you can expect no privacy.
And this is the federal government who put the HIPAA laws into place.
Right, and so the ACA contradicts that. So you have no reasonable expectation of privacy if you sign up for Obamacare. And no, you're not hearing it in the National Telegraph. You're not hearing it in the Union Leader. You're not hearing it on Channel 9. It's people that are doing their homework.
Right.
And then if you do your homework, then you're pulling out your hair because you're wondering, what the heck is going on?
Right.
Well, we got a couple more minutes. What are the most pressing issues that you're finding at the Capitol?
That hopefully luckily for all of us in New Hampshire, it's going to be ending soon. Right. This legislative session. Right. It seems to me that every throughout all this time I've been paying attention to legislation, it's increased the size of government, increased the spending even though the budget's been closed, increased fees, increased taxes, and regulations on businesses, and taking away our freedoms, our personal freedoms.
What about the executive orders didn't the Governor Hassan have executive power to put a freeze on hiring?
She did. But it was after Governor Lynch had put one into place, and in the meantime, she came in and hired like 400 people or something, and then she put a freeze on it, as if she actually did something good. She hired all these people instead of not hiring people in between Governor Lynch and recently, and then she claimed, I'm putting a freeze on hiring, as if she did something good, when in reality she had already hired a lot of people.
How about government accountability? You know, I've done a lot of shows, and you know, there's the FRM scandal, there's the Jeff Ross, there are people that were hurt by the courts. Is there any legislation, excuse me, where people are being made whole after falling through the cracks or being abused by the state?
Not that I know of. I actually think there was, but it failed. There was a redress committee legislation, but it failed.
Interesting.
And there's another thing too, there was a bill, and I can't remember the number, that wanted accountability for the Department of Transportation. That failed.
Well, welcome to the Democratic Party in control, and I say that without apology. And obviously there's some Republicans that are voting for this as well, so pox on both of them. So thank you for coming on the show, and we'll be right back with our next guest.
Amherst from A1. We need PD here right now, please. Get me PD now! No, get me PD now!
Things happen very, very, very quickly.
If the parent isn't proven unfit, a parent should have the rights to their child.
So when the day came I was supposed to get her back, I didn't know where he was.
They are the judge, they are the jury.
I went to give him a hug and a kiss to tell him that everything was going to be all right.
Basically seen it all. This one caught you by surprise.
It was psychologically difficult.
What I want to do is show people that this is organized crime.
We are very uncomfortable.
My husband is beside himself.
This is a trained situation here.
Bullying to bizarre to dangerous.
The scary part was,
Because you don't know what the end is.
Hello, my name is Kevin Avard, host of Speak Up TV. If you would like to be a guest on Speak Up, please contact me at speakupnh@gmail.com. We'll help you be heard. And we're back with our next guest, and I want to introduce my next guest, petitioner number 31, Wade Henry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. Now, when I say petitioner 31, a couple years back, we had the Redress of Grievance Committee. And Wade, you were sponsored by Representative Andrew Manous, and you came to the committee to talk about, you got hurt on the job. Let me see if I can remember the story. You got hurt on the job, and you made a complaint, and somewhere in the process, the bureaucracy took over, and they helped deny your claim on a workers' comp issue. Obviously, workers' comp brought their lawyers to the committee, and you brought your evidence, your doctor's information saying that you were hurt. And somewhere in the mix, in the conversation, a lot of things got broken down, and you were basically denied coverage, even though you were definitely hurt. Correct?
Well, the insurance company brought their lawyers to
Right.
the table.
Oh, it wasn't workers' comp.
The Department of Labor is supposed to be a non-biased, non-affiliated entity.
Right. So is that basically what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So again, tell us a little bit about getting hurt on the job, just a brief summary of what happened. You worked construction.
Worked construction. About a year before this, I was lifting a girder beam into place. The same injury took place, a tear down my neck. I felled it. I put the girder beam into its pocket. It was a heavy piece of steel. And I didn't have problems with it after that. About a year later, I was lifting again, same motions, ladder jacks into place, and then a big heavy plank. And the same tear went down my neck, and I had some problems in my shoulder directly because of it. I thought because of a prior injury it was my shoulder problem. I kept working. I went to the doctor, paid at my own expense. I went to a different job. This one got wrapped up, and I continued to have problems. And I needed help. I went to the Department of Labor. I filed a first report of injury, and the battling began between the insurance company and my attorney.
Okay. And basically, how long did your attorney fight?
My attorney didn't fight at all. My attorney was ill-prepared. He didn't have the witness's statement after he lied to me and reassured me that he did. When I went into the hearing room for the first time in my life, we were in the room with the vending machines. He told me not to worry about it, because that was my first question to him: are we prepared? Do you have this statement? And he was lulling me along until that point.
You must have been paying him, right?
You don't pay. That's the thing. Workers' comp attorneys only get paid if they win the case. They get 20% of the. There's some semantic. There's some. There's some mathematics that are involved in it, but.
So so what happened is you fell through the cracks. The system basically turned on you, and you felt that it was, at this point, you need to file a grievance with the state, because when you came to our committee, you were showing doctors' reports, you were showing medical reports, and documentation which basically told your case. Something broke down. What happened?
What happened was I hired the second attorney. I fired the first attorney after.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that.
No trouble. So I hired the first attorney. I fired him the first time I ever seen him in action. He was obviously misrepresenting me. And I hired the second attorney. The second attorney was making ground for me, carrying the ball along, and then from all the signs that I received, doing just a slim investigation on what was going on, why it was going on, who was involved, stuff like this. I found out that his firm told him to stand down. His firm told him to stand down, but before he did, he was a decent guy. He was taking me to the hearings. I didn't have gas money at the time to go. I had no job. I had 2 really small children I was dealing with excruciating back problems going out of my mind.
Right. And
so he drove me there, and he was talking to me about the Constitution and things like this. And he decided to stand down, but before he did, he put on paper that literally verbatim, he put on paper the Department of Labor has fundamentally misconstrued all the material facts of Mr. Henry's case. So at this point, I'm asking myself, how does a judicial body fundamentally misconstrue the entire facts of the case? Isn't their job to decipher the facts of the case?
Right. Now, there was a point where you were in a hearing, and the hearing was taking place, and then the hearing stopped, and they erased the hearing?
At the original hearing. The Department of Labor and the insurance company were denying me, saying there's no proof of a job site injury. Well, at the same time, they were not allowing the investigative report that they had in their possession. The Department of Labor denies ever seeing the investigative report. So just because of that fact alone, how can they be a judicial body if they don't have full coverage of all the evidence?
Mm-hmm. But there was a point where you said that you were in the hearing and you actually watched the guy erase, or was you just...
Well, yeah, that's when, because I brought it up. My first attorney, he was doing things he wasn't allowed to, he was asking me, he was badgering me. Mm-hmm. He was badgering me about when I got in trouble when I was a kid, what I was in trouble for.
None of that had anything that was germane to what the case was?
Legislatively, the Department of Labor in every state in this country is formed and fashioned in such a manner that you cannot play games by appearances. It's a sound program, because there's only 2 primary constraints that it's placed into, so where there's no hanky-panky going on, right. Or it minimizes the potential of it. And that is, they keep it clear and concise. Is there proof of a job site injury? And what did the doctors say? Because those are the only two relevant things in a workers' comp case.
Now, who came to the hearing? Was that the workers or the insurance companies? That was a heavy, big shot lawyer.
That was Marty Jenkins is the one that he's the legal counsel for the Department of Labor.
And he came in, and of course he talked about the case, but there was a mention that there was only one doctor's report, but you had about 3 doctor's reports, and there were some that were missing.
Well, see, they were missing, and here's the interesting thing is the redress of grievance acknowledged, which is why I still have respect for my state legislatures, because you guys all, even the chairman of the program, Paul Ingerson, sent me an email saying, we're sorry, we've been having difficulty getting the committee members to do their homework until after the case, after the fact, which is in your case.
Now, Timothy Horrigan was doing, Representative Horrigan was doing his homework, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, he, as a committee member, you were there to absorb the facts, get them in, decipher what was going on, and from that, when you look at all the evidence, you basically come to a conclusion. We have a discussion, we have a debate, and then we come up with a vote. In your case, Timothy Horrigan was taking your medical facts, posting them on the web, and accusing you while the hearing was going on.
Well, no, he was accusing, well, yeah, me too, but if you read his blog, if you read his stuff, he was accusing the Redress of Grievance Committee in the state of New Hampshire of releasing people's sensitive, private, protected information. And he was exploiting the committee itself and the jurisdiction, the awesome gridlock break that the committee brings to the table. He was exploiting you guys as doing the very thing that he was in fact doing.
Right. We weren't disseminating your information. It was there. The thing is, what's really funny is this is deja vu all over again. When I look at what's happening with the IRS investigations, with the Benghazi investigations, you're seeing that on those investigations, the Democrats are calling it a kangaroo court. They're accusing the accusers. They're accusing the victims. And Representative Horrigan basically did that to a few people in our, and it's troubling because you're actually coming to the committee for help. You feel as though you've been violated by the state somehow. You have a grievance. You have a constitutional right to petition your government. This committee was designed for you to bring that grievance so that we could bring it to the House so that we could make you whole if we found your claim was true. In the process of you saying, look, I'm hurt. I've been injured by the state. I've been injured by the workers' comp. I've been injured by the system. Now, people are going to make that claim all day long. Everybody. But you have to prove your case. But in the process of proving your case, you don't need the representative who's supposed to be there for you to hear you. You don't need that person accusing you in the same breath. Am I right?
Somebody just explained to me how the state legislature doesn't know that you can't release people's protected private health care information online, not just for American citizens, the whole world.
How did you find that out?
He proudly boasted because it didn't matter. It didn't matter if there were consequences. What mattered was sinking the committee, because the committee comes as a ginomai, it's a Hebrew word, as a mediator, as a diplomat. The committee comes to break, it's another redundancy that can break any nonsense that's going on in any of the other government industries.
We're supposed to hold the people the government accountable. And as a vehicle of transparency and a place where the people can be heard. It was a novel idea. And when the Democrats took power again, they killed the committee. There are 28 founded reports still sitting in the New Hampshire House calendar where people's evidences were founded. Abuses took place, enough evidence for the House to look at. They're still sitting there. They're still sitting in the House and nobody's looking at them. Why?
Well, see, you mentioned the Democrats, and this, because I've never paid attention to politics, ever. And I came into this political experience that I watch on TV for the nation and the local community and stuff. And I thought I believed in everything that was going on that the Democrats were saying. I really, genuinely, how could somebody transparently just blatantly be lying?
Mm-hmm.
So I bring this up because President Obama formed a redress of grievance. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It's called We the People. And it's virtually word for word the same spirit of the organization
As our committee.
as the New Hampshire committee.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, and maybe some other time we could get into that as far as the federal players.
But, getting back to, now, Timothy Horrigan basically posted your medical records on the web.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
While the hearing was going on. Obviously, you felt very violated by that. And so, in addition now, instead of them being a non-biased player, you automatically see somebody attacking you, that you're reaching out for help. Is that part of the breakdown that happened in your case?
It's part of it.
It's okay to ask tough questions, but-
In my specific case, I don't think it was, because there was so much interference going on with the members of the committee, like the vice chair. I asked him a question of why I followed up with everybody on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him a question, just blatant, direct. Why did you decide to find it that way? And his explanation to me, again, was completely irrelevant. You see, the argument at the Department of Labor, the argument with Timothy Horrigan cropping out one part of what the witness said happened, which is completely irrelevant, because if you read the rest of the witness's statement, it goes completely contrary to the people that want to exploit an inferior standpoint or argument that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
So it's the same stuff always going on. They're trying to defend themselves with an argument that is on its face unintelligible.
I think one of the things that somebody had brought up, though, is that they needed some more evidence, or there was something missing.
Well, see, that's the thing. The Department of Labor took my lead. They just let me sheeple right into it, because I wasn't looking for workers' comp. I was looking for answers. So you got to remember, I independently, while nobody in the Parkland system could figure out what was going on in the preliminary stages, I independently started reaching out all over this state. And I went to all kinds of the best doctors around here. Boston Baptist. I went to Boston Baptist, Bedford Spine. I went to all these people. And I started getting reaffirming doctor's statements saying, yeah, I mean, it's obvious he didn't hurt his back washing dishes.
Right.
So
obviously, and it was there was a question, did you tell the employer at the time that you were hurt?
That I thought it was a shoulder injury.
Right.
And as far as the neck went, I assumed, because when it happened when I was lifting the girder beam into place a year ago.
And so that ambiguity is where it'll happen. You don't know what's happening.
Well, not
internally.
necessarily, because in the redress of grievance, there were a few people that tried to pry in and get direct answers as far as in extenuating circumstances, what would happen. And they said, well, how long do you have to file a complaint? Oh, there's plenty of time, Marty Jenkins says. They've got 6 months or whatever it is. So if it's cut and clear in the law that there's plenty of time, you got a 6-month span to report your injury, then, well, that sort of moots out the whole argument of I waited 2 weeks while I was still working, and it kept getting worse.
Right. That's well within the 6 months period, obviously. Interesting. So how are you now? What's going on with you?
I'm an old person in a young man's body.
Your neck is still really hurting.
My neck, my shoulder, I've shot nails through my hands. My hands hurt. Yeah, I got all kinds of injuries. And, I mean, I've found that I can't perform. I just can't. In contracting, you have to meet daily a certain status quo.
It's rough work.
Yeah, it's not easy.
What needs to be changed in the system so that people don't fall through the cracks like yourself? What I'm sure you have this long list, but what do people need to know? If you get hurt on the job, what's the first thing you should do?
The first thing you should do is call an ambulance. Don't listen to anybody. Have an ambulance take you away, and there's nothing anybody can say about it.
Okay.
There's no arguments left.
Right. Is that what you think you should have done at that point?
I shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. Even if, listen, I don't care come hell or high water. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to talk to people the way I want to talk to people.
Right.
And if they don't like it, then come to the table and speak to me intelligibly. And that's what should be done. There should be somebody in the government or yourself or somebody that's doing what you're doing. I don't understand how this question is posed. Either somebody has a valid point and they have the evidence to back it up,
right,
and they can cohesively and coherently convince you that not because of what they're saying, but because of the evidence is lining up with what they're saying, chances are more than not that what they're saying and the evidence put together is exactly what it is.
Right. And then that you should be made whole from your grievance. And that's the whole point of the committee, is to validate people's claims, obviously. That vehicle isn't there anymore. You can complain to a state rep at this point, but I'm not sure how that works in our state anymore.
Why wouldn't you want that, though?
Oh, exactly.
If you're having homegrown terrorists, you're having people that are lighting themselves on fire, you're having all this stuff.
And you're talking about basically the incident out in Keene, basically where a man who was just frustrated because he committed no crime, and he ended up, after great frustration with our court system, he lit himself on fire. And that's what you're basically talking about, right?
Yeah, and
so people are getting frustrated.
Yeah, you got people with kids involved. Being a parent,
right?
You know, it's one thing that I can sit on my landlord's property and do some gardening until my lower back hurts, and then fiddle around with hobby type of construction stuff until my neck and my shoulder feel like they're being, you know, in a house of horrors.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I look at this stuff with these people with kids, and I'm saying the government can't come in and provide dispute resolution coordination because. And it's the same thing with the Department of Labor. This is where it all starts from, a dispute resolution coordinator. They're the diplomat to come in and grease the skids, so if there's any flexibility one way or the other, they're the people that are magically able to come on and fix everything.
Yeah. How'd that work out for you? It's not funny, you know, I'm just...
I mean, what dispute resolution coordinator? There's a Captain Dirk Hecking. He's got it all down as far as what the spirit of the law or what's going on contrary to the legislative intent.
The system is there to provide a service, and in doing so, by getting so big, it actually ends up protecting itself. And I think when people come to the grievance, when they came to the grievance committee, they were looking for somebody to be accountable. They were looking for it to be made whole. And you can be a multimillionaire, or you can be, you know, a poor factory worker. Everybody has the equal rights to come to that committee and be heard. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be, well, I got a lot of money and I'm going to get my justice. I don't have a whole lot of money. Good luck, Charlie. You know, you need to be able to be heard. You need somebody there to hear your story, and look at the evidence, and give you a fair shot. That's why that committee meant a lot to me, and I'm sorry that it's gone. I'm sorry that people have still not been made whole. I keep bringing up Jeff Frost, and I'm going to keep bringing him up because he's another instance where his property was ransacked. He was threatened with imprisonment, high fines. He said he was innocent. He appealed, and he appealed, and he appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court, but it cost him $185,000 to prove he was innocent. Something's broken in our system when it's that top-heavy that a person has to spend $185,000 to prove that he was innocent. He needs his money back, and he needs to be compensated for that. I've heard workers' comp stories over and over again where people have been, you know, they weren't satisfactorily taken care of. The employers are paying for the workers' comp. The employees are paying part of it, I guess, out of their salary. They should be made whole if they're injured. If you can prove the injury and you go through the system, it shouldn't be a big bureaucracy to get a claim through. Obviously, there are people that are out there abusing. There's more people abusing welfare than the workers' comp. I guarantee it. There needs to be a safety net, but you also need a voice. And I'm not trying to overtalk your situation here, but we're hearing a lot of stories. We're hearing a lot of, and this really is our first workers' comp on Speak Up. You want to close out the show with any final statements?
You know, I've been wondering about you, truthfully, you know, because I contacted you a few times, and you know, I just assumed you're busy.
We are.
Everybody else in the government that I've contacted has tried to paint me as crazy or narcissistic or psychologically deranged or potentially a national security threat. And it's good to see. It took a long time to start finding people.
Well, there needs to be more places where you can be heard. And this can't be the only show out there, obviously. And hopefully when we get back into the Senate, we'll be able to bring some of these redresses back. So let's see what happens.
All right.
So I'd like to do another follow-up interview with you at another time to talk about some of the after effects of the redress, because obviously it didn't go your way. It didn't go with your findings, and I want to see how that can be remedied. If we can figure out what went wrong in the presenting of your case. Was it a state rep's problem? Was it Timothy Horrigan? Was it the system? How could it be made easier for you to get your story out clear? You know, so we'd like to do a follow-up if that's okay.
Sure.
And if people wanted to contact you, how would you want to put out your?
Sure. Ocean_Hunter@live.com.
Okay.
And you can always contact Captain Dirk Hecking, New Hampshire DOL Corruption. He has a number on there, and you contact him, and you can talk to him about what's going on too. Just, you know, as a check and balance, redundancies. You got more than just one person saying there's bad stuff at the Department of Labor.
And that's right. And so that's why I want to bring these up. You know, if there are other people out there, we'd like them to contact the show. And if you want to be a guest on Speak Up, please contact me at speakupnh@gmail.com. You want to tell your story, you've been injured, let me know, okay? Until next week, thanks for watching, and we appreciate you watching the show. If you would like to be a guest on Speak Up, please contact me at speakupnh@gmail.com. We'll help you be heard.
Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.